Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit podcast. Today, we are changing it up. We're going to do something super fun, super creative, and we are going to do a live consultation for you. I've got a super special person with me here, and we'll be introducing her in just a second. But it came to my attention, we get emails and questions every single day, and I try my best to be able to answer those. And I know a lot of people ask to have consultation calls with us, and unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to get to all of them. So I thought, why don't we actually just record some of our consultations and put them out there? Because I know the questions we're going to get into in this consultation, many of you have that. So that's what we're doing. Today's episode is going to be a live, in action consultation call of a aspiring summit host who is working towards putting out a really cool summit. So get ready. We're going to have a lot of fun with this, and everything we're going to talk about is going to be inside the show notes over at podcast.virtualsummits.com/060. Well, without further ado, I have to introduce the fabulous, the wonderful Leah D'Ambrosio, who is the COO of Baked Smart, creator of Cannacals, the world's first edible cannabis safety solution, and she's going to be working on a super special summit. Leah, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Dr. Mark. It's such an honor to have this time with you. I just feel so excited and privileged, so thank you so much.
Well,
really looking forward to this.
As I was mentioning to you in the pre-chat, there is nobody I know that is more deserving to be on this and that I'm more excited to be with. So we're going to rock and roll. Leah, for everybody listening in, Leah is a rock star. She's always on everything we do. She's always contributing. She's providing great feedback, and she's just a really blessing to our tribe and our community. So we're super happy and glad to have you. Now, Leah, this is going to be a little different. So instead of like a back and forth Q&A type of episode, we're going to dig into your upcoming summit. So why don't we start off, for me to have a better understanding of this, why don't you kind of talk me through your concept and what it is? What is it going to be? Like, for example, what is the name of it that you're coming up? What's the kind of the goal and the outcome? And is it a multi-day? Is it a one day? Like, let's go through some of those details.
Sure. So the subject is going to be edibles. We don't have a working title yet. We're thinking, everything you'd want to know about edibles or about starting an edibles business. It's really going to be geared toward people who are thinking about going in and starting an edibles business, and also for those who are already in the business, because we have a lot of people who were like me when I started my edibles business that were just really good at baking or confections, and they decided, hey, I'm going to translate this to cannabis, which is great, and you can serve a lot of people, but there's a lot of different things you need to consider in the cannabis space. And so we're really hoping to have all this information as like a one-stop shop. Because what has happened to us before is you pay a lot of money to go to these big marijuana conferences. And I mean, it could be thousands of dollars by the time you pay for lodging and everything. And you get there, and 9 times out of 10, the 2 speakers you want to see that you are there to see are speaking at the exact same time. And then, so you go to one and you still aren't getting any notes, you're not getting the slides. And so you're really just kind of relying on yourself to remember everything. And so what we're hoping to do is get all of these incredible edibles experts and have them together for a 2-day conference. And then, but I kind of wanted to talk to you more about the length of it, because that is something we are kind of debating. Do we do a 2-day? Do we do a 3-day? But we really hope that this will be the start of something bigger where it is a one-stop shop, because at these marijuana conferences, another thing we noticed was edibles are kind of like the redheaded stepchild. They don't get a lot of focus, yet they're one of the best ways to consume cannabis. I mean, it's a great way. That's the only way I really consume. I know for others, like in Vermont, I think it's the #1 way to consume. So it's a really important issue. And that's what we're trying to do, is just like get information together and share it with the world.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact. I like that. You are a wealth of information when it comes to this topic. So I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot as we go through this. And like I told you previously, this is a topic that I think is super interesting. Anytime somebody can run a summit on a topic, one that hasn't had much exposure in this way before, it's going to crush it.
Right.
But two, also it's an interesting topic. So an interesting topic always performs well. So let's kind of get into it then. So you're saying maybe 2 days. What's your objective or your purpose or your goal of the summit?
So our objective is to literally have somebody come to it and go from, this is how you have the best kitchen layout for top performance and production, to, what do you have to consider when it comes to tax implications? Because that's a huge problem. We get taxed at a completely different tax rate than other companies. In cannabis, federally, you can't write off most of your business expenses. So you can get taxed up to 75%. So that's a really big issue. And then also, how do you get the word out about yourself? How do you set yourself apart? So there's going to be marketing and branding. So we are initially thinking 3 days. Like the first day would be, here's kind of production. The second day would be tax, legal, insurance, all of these things. And the third day would be marketing, branding, PR. But then we thought, maybe 3 days is too much for our first one. Maybe we should go down to the 2 days. And then if we do 2 days, what is the sweet spot for how many speakers do we have? Do we have 6 20 minutes, or do we have, 5 1 hour? There's a lot of things that we're still trying to kind of finesse.
Well, let's work through some of those ideas today.
Okay.
When I'm asking about the objective, it's more like, what's the end goal? And so I get the objective of the information, which we'll get into like the tracks of that, which is good. You've already got a handle on it. But like, is it list building? Is it engagement? Is it monetization? Is it relationship?
For us. So this is the problem with me, because I'm always thinking about everybody else first, and I always put myself last, right? So of course I'm thinking, I want to make sure everybody is armed for bear, they've got everything they need. For us, I think that the most important thing for us is 2 things: getting our name out there and getting the list building, because we do plan on doing this with other topics in this space. And so the list building is going to be really key. For this first summit, we will not really have any upsell, but after this first summit, thanks to you and your guidance, we will be doing kind of packaging this all together in either a book or a webinar and reselling it at a later date, because obviously edibles are not going to go away. And as more and more states legalize, this is going to be really important information. And of course, we will probably re-release the summit, 6 months, a year later, just to kind of get more interest again. But our upsell for this one will be more geared towards the consumers. Will have discounts from sponsors, we'll have discounts from presenters, some free bonus gifts. Bonus interviews is what we're hoping for, where we get some real actionable items from our speakers that you will get in the bonus. And that will help us get a stronger list. These are people who are actually really interested. They're actually committed to buying, as opposed to just the people who want the free webinar.
So okay, so and if you see me looking down over here, I'm just taking notes on different areas. We've got a lot we're going to cover on this. So I'm going to try and get a good round information from you, and then we're going to start digging in. So what is the message? Like, I got that what you're wanting to help people with, but like, what is the message? Like, what's the transform? Actually, let's start with who's the avatar. Like, who is the person that this summit is for?
So I think that we're going to have 2 avatars. One is going to be someone who wants to get into the edible business. And this is like, okay, this is everything for you. This is what you're going to need to know. And it's kind of a starter. But then it's also for the person who already has their edible business, and maybe they are struggling with marketing, or maybe they're struggling trying to find good advice for accounting or legal advice, product liability, or insurance, things like that. Or maybe they're small and they don't know how to upscale, because we're going to talk about that, how to go into different states, how to really ramp up your business. So it will be, the one avatar will be for the newbie. The other avatar is somebody who's actually already doing it, but maybe not getting the results that they need. And so we're hoping through this information that will help
Cool.
that.
Yeah. So we're starting to get more streamlined here. So first off, it's not for consumers. So we've got that. This is
Right.
for the business. And then so before I'm going to suggest, and again, everything I'm going to tell you today is for your own benefit. You can take it, you can do it, or you can not, right? Like it's not going to hurt my feelings one way or another. I'm just going to tell you what I think. And ultimately it's your summit, it's your business. So you need to take it in the direction you want to take it. I'm just going to give you my advice and my ideas.
Okay.
So first off, I would pick one avatar. Reason is, two reasons actually. One is we need to get super clear on the messaging. And I know you know this because we've talked about it a lot, but the more specific the messaging is, the higher the conversions is going to be, the higher the engagement, and the easier it's going to be for you to create this. When our messaging, especially like if we're trying to go to two avatars, we need to talk to two people, which means we almost have to create two summits inside of one. So my first thought is, why not just run two separate summits? Like, not at the same time, obviously, but like, why don't you start with the one that means the most to you, which sounded like it was the one for the business owners who already have something trying to scale. But then why not create another one later for the newbies? Because these are two different options here. Otherwise,
that's a great point. Because of
go ahead.
The content, right? Like the content is going to be different. So as you're talking, I'm realizing what I'm going to ask for newbies is going to be different than what I'm going to ask my speakers of people who are already established and who are already out there doing it.
There's so many aspects to why it's not that you can't, because you can totally do this, but you would definitely want to run a longer summit. You need to take more attention on making sure you have clear communication on which tracks or for who, because for example, if a business owner who's already got like kind of a good business going is listening to a session for a newbie, they're going to be like, this isn't for me. And then they're going to stop engaging as well. So my advice would be pick one, which I would go with the current one you already have, and table the second one for later. Maybe it's 2 or 3 months down the road or whatnot. A lot of these same speakers, after they see you host a successful summit, will be up to doing another one. And again, if your goal is influence and list building, 2 summits is better than 1, right? I mean,
Definitely.
So with that being said, for influence and list building, the longer or bigger the summit, the better, but within reason. Okay. So I'm not saying you should do like a 60-person 7-day summit, especially on your first one. But if the goal is list building and influence, kind of having that 20, 30, maybe a little bit more number of speakers on there, it's expert leverage, right? So the more like the audience is seeing you with all of these people, plus the goal is to have all of these speakers promote it, preferably through email. So that means the bigger opportunity you have to build your list. So I would lean towards, if you're between 2 and 3 days, I would lean towards the 3 days, maybe even 4 days. It doesn't have to be more difficult by going 3 to 4 days. It doesn't mean you have to add more speakers. It just gives you a longer opportunity to build the list, right? Because if it closes in 3 days, you have 3 days. Because here's the main thing. When it comes to list building, the sweet spot, like the closer it gets to the summit, it's like a hockey stick curve. The higher the conversion gets. So like a week out from the summit, your conversion for the summit is going to be much higher than 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out is going to be much higher than 4 weeks out. And I wouldn't even recommend advertising more than 4 weeks out, right? Like the sweet spot's that 2 weeks. But the biggest time that people opt in for the summit is when the summit is live, because there's people in it talking about it. So if you gave yourself an extra day, you now have 4 days for people to talk about, or 3 days versus 2 days. Now this is not the advice I normally give, right? You know, I'm normally like,
Yeah.
start with a one-day summit.
You're right.
I know you're already jumping into a multi-day summit. So if you're going to do a multi-day summit, I want you to get the maximum out of it. Okay. So anybody listening in, I always recommend our new summit hosts start with a one-day summit. But you know, Leah here she's on top of everything. She's consuming all the information and knock her summit out of the park. So that's what I would recommend as far as the days. Okay. So 3 days, maybe 4 days, number of speakers. One is going to be dependent on how many speakers can you get. And two, it really is not just about recruiting speakers. And we were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, is it's just a bunch of content, almost too much content. Okay.
Right.
But we can do it in a way where it doesn't feel like that. You can have a lot of content, but what we do is we set our audience up for success. So meaning we either make it super clear that there's different kind of tracks, and we'll get into that in just a second, or that, hey, we don't expect you to consume all of this. Take the things that matter most to you, and that's your win. So for setting up a successful summit, though, we have to keep in mind a couple things here. So I was asking you, Avatar. We've got kind of the framework of the summit. It's going to be a multi-day summit, 3-ish days. Speaker number we can get into in a minute. We have essentially the objective, which is what we now need to clarify. Like, what is the one thing that if I'm your target audience and I go through your summit, what I'm here, what happens at the end? Like, where am I at now? Like, how do I know I've succeeded after I've finished the summit?
Well, I think that hopefully, because of the people that we plan on interviewing, that you're going to walk away with some really actionable items, such as, now you know where to get the best insurance. Now you know who the insurance companies are that will be insuring marijuana companies, because that's a problem. Not everyone will insure a marijuana company. And if they do, they might overcharge you. Also, finding the best way to market yourself, and also finding out which edibles are selling the best and where are they selling them. You know, a lot of people, they want to do chocolate. That's what they're going to do. But you might be in a market that is completely saturated with chocolate, and just doing something like toffee or something slightly different can really put you up above. So we're just hoping that the information that we give is going to inspire and also arm people with, like, hey, I've got this knowledge. Now I know who I could reach out to get more statistics. Cool. We're going to have a data.
I'm going to jump in here. Okay. And I should have preempted this because of our time limit. I'm going to, like, once I have what I need, I'm going to jump in and so we can keep getting to more topics. Okay. Yep. So the first step, and I do that with love, obviously, but so please don't take offense to it. But this is a little bit of a problem here. You have a lot of information, which is great. You know what you want to teach, but you got to get super clear on what the mission is, because I'm going to get all that stuff, but did I succeed or not? Did I not succeed? Yeah, I got information, but was that the goal? So, I mean, and it's not a game breaker, a deal breaker. It's more about setting them up for success. Is at the end of this summit, you will be a successful cannabis business owner. Like, whatever that one mission is, and then you have all the things underneath it. Know where to get your insurance, know where to get this, know how to do that. But what's the mission? Okay?
Well, and I think you just nailed it. I mean, that you will be a successful cannabis edible owner after this. You'll have all the information, at least you'll have all the resources you need to get out there. And then also to up your business. I mean, if we're going to do it for someone who's already existing, we want to really kind of hit that home that you can take your business to the next level, because a lot of this information, a lot of people aren't thinking about.
True. And so this is great because you have the mission, and then everything you'd already said, you can still list. This is how they know they've accomplished the mission, because you'll get this, you'll get this, you'll get this, you'll get this. Now, what's cool with this is all those things you're listing, those can become tracks. Okay. And I would look at it. So what we'll kind of go into now is kind of the story, right? So when we're setting up a summit, when it comes to summits, especially, well, all summits, there's 3 big kind of failure points. Like, I talk a lot about the little points. I get into a lot of the details, but the big point is messaging. Okay. I spend a lot of time talking about messaging, because if your messaging is not right, nobody even comes on the summit, and then the summit's over. Then I also spend a lot of time talking about the post-summit profit strategy, because people host a summit, but then they don't do anything with it. And it was like, why'd I just waste all that time? So I spent a lot of time talking about that too, so that you can at least monetize to some degree. So it's a positive outcome no matter what. And then the other aspect, which I haven't done a lot of talking about previously, is the sessions. Like the interview sessions in the summit story is so important, because if it's not, it's like if you were watching a movie and all the scenes were mixed up, you would never watch the movie, right? You would become unengaged. So we have to put some attention on our story, which is why I was asking for the mission, because when you have the mission, you can now set up your story. Your story can be broken down into these tracks. So let's say I've already got an insurance, like an insurance person. I should be able to easily see like, okay, I don't need that one, but I do need this one, so I can get in. Just think of like the conferences you go to that have multiple rooms, right?
Right.
Like you want to think
they all have a track.
Exactly. You want to kind of think of your summit like that. If you do that, essentially what you're doing is you're just thinking about, how can I make my audience the most successful? And I can do that by giving them the information they need. So that's one thing I would think about is like kind of creating tracks. Maybe like there's maybe there's a business track, maybe there's like a monetization track, or, whatever. You can kind of clump them together. It also helps you get clearer on what you need to pull out of your speakers when you're doing the interviews, because we don't want every interview to sound the same as the other one, right? Like if this person can tell me better about monetization, let's get as much about monetization out of the 30 minutes I have with this person, whereas this person knows about research. So let's go and research with this person. Otherwise, they'll all tell you about everything, and then all the interviews start to sound the same.
Exactly. Okay? I think that's probably our biggest concern, because everything else, I think that through like your virtual summit software and through, just all the advice we've been given, we know kind of how to do, we know the logistics of everything, but it's the interviews, right? That is where it's really going to be hard. And that's why it's really great to have this information about, really narrowing down our messaging and what is it that we're trying to get out of these speakers. What do we want our audience to walk away with? What are the top like 5 points we want each speaker to make that makes it worth it for the listener, and really actionable. I mean, we're really focusing on, they've got to have actionable items for us. So that is something, and I know you're coming out with something on interviews soon. So we're really excited about that, because we know that's really going to help.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact. We'll be diving a lot into that in this upcoming month or so. We got some free training programs coming out as well. So, but even right now at this moment, what you can do to increase that, like apart from the actual interview, we'll be going through interview training skills, but like going into it prepared is understanding, where am I trying to take my audience from a bigger perspective? And so by looking at that, I have the story, or like think of it like a movie or a book. And then kind of each day, or even segments of the days, are like chapters, right? And then each interview is a scene. So from that scene, what do I want to get out of that for my audience? So if you really think about that, then you know how to craft your questions, and even like just how to keep steering that interview with your person. And when you tell the speaker in advance about that, speakers usually, they can talk when they're a subject matter expert. Like I can talk on summits in about just about any category or any way you want me to. But if you tell me exactly what you want me to talk about, I can go deep on that. And so your speakers will be able to do that as well, which makes it better for your audience, right? They're going to walk away. Even if they walk away from one session, then they go, that was well worth my time. That's the goal.
Exactly. That is the goal.
And, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago about sponsors. We talked specifically about like some engagement strategies. If you can use engagement strategies throughout your summit as well with your sessions, that keeps your audience engaged as well, which keeps them in it as well as gets them a better outcome, a better experience. So a couple things Go ahead.
Can I ask you really quickly? So when we talked about sponsors, and we can answer this later if it's too soon, you had mentioned Easter eggs. And so I just wanted to ask a little bit about that. Like, what would an Easter egg exactly look like? And how would we incorporate that
Yeah.
successfully? Because that would be in the interviews, right?
Yeah. So you can put it
Okay.
in the interviews. And just to clarify for everybody listening, like we don't actually mean like painted Easter eggs. We're talking about like hidden gems, hidden tips, hidden secrets that your audience is looking for. And when they find it, they can kind of get rewarded for being able to find it. So there's different ways of doing it. Like we were talking specifically with sponsors. So you can put those throughout the sessions for your sponsors. I like examples would be, maybe product placement, and people have to identify, and maybe like, it's not obvious, it's not sitting in front, but like maybe it was sitting back on your shelf, kind of hidden behind one of those things, and your audience has to be looking for it, right? So they're being
Right.
active with it. Now that was sponsorship stuff, but as far as engagement is concerned, what we want to think about, again, from the story, the summit story, throughout that, we want to keep people like, what are actions? So breaking it down, like to quickly break this down backwards. So we want to get them to believe a certain thing. Okay. We have to change their perspective. In order for our audience to change their perspective, we have to overcome beliefs. So we need to identify what are the beliefs that they need to overcome. Maybe it is that I can be a successful cannabis business owner. Like, for example, that's very generic, but like, let's say that was a belief. So now what are the emotions that we need to elicit for that person to believe this? Because if they can believe this, then they'll have the perspective of, let's go be a successful cannabis owner. So again, this comes to being like kind of creative, but what are the things that you can do in your summit, like that makes your audience take action? And by that, it can be like, go research the top 10 cannabis producing, farms or factories in the country, and then report back to us in the group. So we're making them be active. They're doing something, but in the process, they're learning something too. And so maybe they go, there's only 2, or maybe they go, there's 1,000. Like, we're trying to give them information by making them do something. So you can do calls to action like that. You can actually, in the middle of the interview, go, and you can set this up in advance. This is where the intention and planning comes in. Let your speaker know this speaker is perfect for this topic because they're going to talk about cannabis farms. So in the middle of it, we're going to say, okay, here you go. Action item. I want you to go research 10 cannabis farms in the US, report back to the Facebook to be entered into a raffle or whatever. Also, if you're doing like what we call a summit playbook, or like kind of a roadmap, you can add that into there. So it's like they're going through it. Their tracks are laid out so they can see where they're going. They have an idea. They have a better understanding of which sessions they want to watch. And there can be like little calls to action in that too. So even if they kind of missed it in the session, it's there. So we talked about it from a sponsorship aspect, but it still holds true from a summit aspect. It's just about making your audience do something that they also learn or are entertained. They don't necessarily just have to learn. It could be entertained. We see this all the time, and it's effective, which is why we're seeing it, is people that are doing launches, they'll be like, okay, a buddy of mine launches in the speaker space. So he goes, I need you to do, his thing is everybody's afraid of public speaking. So I want you to break that belief right now and record yourself doing a 3-minute speech and put it in the Facebook. What's he doing? He's making them engage. So just thinking kind of like, what are the things that your people would want, your audience would want to do, and is either entertaining or educational. So that's kind of that. And we can go in more depth on that later. I just want to make sure we cover some of these other items as well. Because one of the things you had talked about was upsells and not necessarily having one of those. So here's a couple things when it comes to summit offer and upsells. Is one way of getting your speakers to engage too, and this is up to you if you like the idea or don't like the idea, but one way of getting some of your top maybe speakers or even organizations to engage is you can allow them to contribute into the summit offer, into the package, right? Like an actual thing that normally people would pay for. And in return for that, they will get access to the buyer's list. Now, it's because it's like doing a profit share, except instead of sharing the profit, you're sharing the buyer's list, but it's because they contributed something of value to that list. So technically, the customers are buying that object from them, as well as from them, as well as from them. Now, you wouldn't do this for everybody. You'd limit it to like 3, maybe 4 people. But anybody who's in the marketing or kind of like direct marketing space will know that buyers list is the most valuable thing out of the entire summit.
Right.
And you would put a minimum. So you would say, for you, like, I'm going to only offer this to 4 people. I'm offering it to you. And if you want it, we'll put you in it. But in order for you to get access to the buyers list, there's 1,000 lead opt-in minimum or something like that. So that way they have to hold standards to it. So that's just like one little thing to think about from there. From the upsell, there's so many things you could use as an upsell without even having to go build it out. For example, you can do the transcripts of all the sessions. Those could be an order bump or an upsell. Okay. Another option is the audible MP3 versions of all the sessions. Cause there's a lot of people that are like, I don't have time to sit in front of a computer, but I would listen to it on my drive. Well, that could be a $10 upsell or a $30 upsell, whatever.
Okay.
Also something we do on all of our summits, and this will be in this program we're teaching, but at the end of it, at the end of every interview, I record, like I take notes of what the speaker was talking about, and then I record a quick 60-second to 2-minute summary of that. And then we put it in, we call it the super summary bundle. And so if you don't want to watch all 30 hours, you can get the whole thing condensed into 60 minutes or whatever as a summary.
That's amazing.
And you pay for that. So you have a lot of options for upsells without actually having to go and build something that's even like a part of the cannabis stuff, right? There's a whole bunch of other options we could talk about with that too, but those are just a couple little easy, simple things you could do.
Okay, fantastic.
So I want to leave the last, 5 to 10 minutes open for like going in some other specific areas of questions you have. Those were just things that I had written down as you were talking that kind of popped out to my mind. And I also agree with you completely. You should plan to do what we call a relaunch of the summit and then a legacy version of the summit. So with this being one of the first summits in your space on this topic, you don't want to ever lose the momentum, right? You're going to be the first. We had mentioned people will start to mimic you. I mean, it happens. Yes. Everybody who's a leader will be mimicked, but that's okay, because if you continue to run that summit annually, you'll continue to be the top. And everybody else will just be a copy, right? And your speakers will know this is the one that happens every year. This is the one I'm going to always be a part of. But what you can also do is relaunch it 4 to 6 months later. You just reach out to your speakers. You say, hey, this was such a great summit. We had such great feedback on it. We're going to go ahead and reopen it again for another couple days. Would you mind sending out 1 or 2 more emails? Most speakers are going to be like, of course, everything still stands. They still have their affiliate link, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like another bump of momentum as well as list building. And then what you can actually do is that's the relaunch. The legacy is you just reach out to your speakers and say, hey, especially if you're using the virtual summit software, you have the Ever Summit feature. You say, hey, would you mind just putting this one email? It's non-promo. It's just like an informative value add into your nurture campaign, which most people will have, that directs them towards the summit that you were on. And so that's a way that you're constantly continuing to have traction and list building from a summit that you ran a year or 2 ago, right?
Right.
So those are just some thoughts. Let's jump into a couple kind of questions that maybe you have before we wrap up.
Well, I think that one thing that we kind of talked about earlier was just how do we send out emails without the burnout? Like, so right now I'm getting all these emails for these like yoga, virtual summits, or especially in the animal space, everyone seems to be jumping on that and like, connecting with your animals or energy work or all these different things. But when you get these emails, they are so long and there's so much, and each speaker has an upsell that they're doing. And I don't even want to go to the summit because I'm just like, forget it. It's too much. I don't want to be bombarded with more emails from all of these speakers as well. So how do we prevent that, or like
So are you saying the speakers are emailing you as well as the summit?
No, it's the summit host, but then you see all these speaker upsells that you can do that they're doing before it even starts. Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like, wow, this is a lot, and I don't want our people to get like, this is just too much, it's burnout.
Well, there's 2 points with this, and you're 100% right. And it is a personal decision on how you want to do your summit. But the first thing is, I would say from from a coach perspective, I would say that when your summit is live, that's your opportunity to email. Like that's when you they know, you're being emailed because the summit's coming. Whereas if that was happening 4 months later, you'd be like, this is spam, don't email me. So you have that opportunity to email while you're right before your summit and while your summit's live. So use it. Okay. Like that's my opinion. Now you bring up the other aspect of this. And I would also say that it sounds like those summits, the objective of those summits is monetization. And I've said this 1,000 times, the summit is not your monetization strategy. It's your relationship building strategy. And they're not doing a very good job of building a relationship with you, right?
Exactly.
So that's the example of what not to do. So what you should be doing is, one, every email you send out, like don't send out an email just because I said send out an email every day, right? And that's the problem. They're just like, I'm just going to put something on an email because I need to send out an email, and it doesn't resonate or relate to you. So don't do that. Every email that goes out should add value to that person's life, either from an entertainment perspective or an educational perspective, okay? Now, if we move back a couple steps and go back to the story, what's the story we're trying to tell? And if you think of your emails as like narrator talking the person through that story, and you add some entertainment, or what we like to call edutainment, into that, then people are looking forward to your email. And it's not this kind of burnout. It's like, I can't wait to get the email today to see what's going on. But it takes more time and energy and effort to do that, which is why a lot of people don't. But that's also how you set yourself apart from everybody else. So I would say do email every day, but think through your plan of like, what's the story and what value am I adding today? It shouldn't just be like, well, I'm just going to tell them about the speakers who are speaking today because I don't know what else to talk about. No, it should be, I'm going to tell you a story. And here's the way you can incorporate, especially your featured speakers, is look at their story. Tell the speaker's story from an entertainment perspective. Like, oh, this speaker was talking about how they were in, Colombia one time looking at marijuana plantations, and they got stopped in customs and they were almost deported. And this is like, I'm going to read that email, right? So tell a story in the email that's directing them further along. So you already know what you don't want to do. So don't do that, but take the time and energy to tell a story. And I promise you, your audience will not only love you and have a relationship with you from that, they'll want to be a part of whatever else you got going on. And that's when you truly crush it. And your speakers will be like, I'm going to be a part of this. Anytime that Leah asks me, I'm going to do whatever she wants. That's the goal.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah, I would never even have really thought that. So that's perfect. And it makes so much sense. Just keep the story going, and almost like little previews, like movie previews. This is what's coming up and this is what this person did. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And that's also why, like, when people reach out to me and say, hey, Mark, can I have your summit email copy? I'm like, yeah, but it's not going to work for you at all because it's not your story. It's not your speaker's story, et cetera. And I'm not saying I've done this perfectly. Sometimes, because we run so many summits, we do have templates, and we'll use those templates. And every time we do those templates, we never have the same engagement as a freshly written copy that tells a story. So let's maybe one last question you have with your summit before we wrap up.
Gosh, there's so much. Okay. So I just feel like one more question about this is speakers versus influencers, so we're going to have attorneys. Obviously they're not influencers. They may not have the list. So how do you make this attractive to people? Obviously the affiliate program is how they get paid. And so how do you make it attractive to somebody who's might not have a really big email list? So they might not get the engagement that, like, let's say an influencer might get.
Yeah, no, this is a great point. And here's the thing, when it comes to the speakers, again, I'll say, you think of the story. What is the story you're trying to tell, and who can tell the story the best versus what speaker can I get and how can I make them fit into the summit? So if we do that, it aligns things. And maybe that attorney is the best person to tell this story. And so in all of our summits, like, we are obviously, as I teach, looking for people who are like niche or industry experts who have some type of following. They don't have to be the influencer. Usually we're going for the people who are not the biggest influencers because they will actually promote it harder than an influencer will.
Right.
But we always look for 2 other people, and depending on the size of the summit, depends on how many of them we get. But in my healthcare company, we look for academics because they are literally the smartest people on that topic. They're the ones practicing it every day. And most of them have no clue about like internet marketing. They have no list, no following. So from like a list building perspective, like it would make no sense. However, they're going to provide the best information. So it comes down to always thinking about what is in the best interest of my audience. Now, I can't have an entire summit of all academics or all attorneys or people that don't have lists, but I do want to include those in there. The other perspective that we try and include in there, because it creates engagement and entertainment, is a conflicting view. Somebody who doesn't agree with what we're talking about on the summit, because usually those get the most engagement. Those are the ones that people are in. It opens up the conversation, discussion. You get somebody that would say, for example, and you wouldn't fill your summit with it, but like 1, maybe 2 that say, cannabis is bad for you. You shouldn't have cannabis. And what that does is it shows that you are open to hearing other perspectives. So you're not closed-minded, which lets your audience know that you're not just trying to sell them something that's in your own benefit. You're really trying to help them, educate them. But also, the discussion and conversation that happens because of that, and the meeting that you'll have to do. But like those are the ones that really kind of get the engagement going, get some virality in the summit. So I would do that even if the person doesn't have a list. What's in the best interest for your audience? And with that being said, you do need to find the other people. But we're talking 1 or 2 people, right? It's not gonna be detrimental one way or the other to your summit.
So how do they get compensated then? So usually the speakers would get compensated through the affiliate program, right? So if they don't have it, then what's like just being a speaker is the draw then for them?
Yeah. So most of them in those aspects, like if they don't have a list, they probably don't understand list building, right? And they probably don't understand affiliate marketing. So it's actually more difficult to try and explain that to them.
Right.
To be like, hey, we're going to feature you on a summit, on a platform that's going to have 100,000 impressions and 5,000 attendees. Like they know conferences. And so that's prestigious. And we're going to have you on here with these other people. The best way is really for them to be on board with the mission. That's always the best way to get somebody. If they're like, yeah, this is important. I work with cannabis business owners and I see them make these mistakes all the time. And plus you can let them know that this exposure will indirectly probably bring them clients too. We're featuring you as the expert. People are going to go, you know what, that attorney really resonated with me. I'm going to reach out to them. So it's not like we shouldn't think of it from a speaker's perspective that all speakers are expected to be compensated. A lot of speakers, for example, are wanting exposure. They want their name out there. So that alone is great. And then the other ones are, we're going to give you an opportunity to build your list. And the ones that understand, we're going to also give you an opportunity to be compensated from it. And from everybody else's perspective, we're going to give you the opportunity to help make the world a better place and increase your exposure in that world.
Definitely. Well, this is very exciting because edibles are near and dear to my heart. And as you know, my company is all about marketing edibles. And so I'm really hoping that throughout this conference, we can talk to just kind of interject that about how important it is to have edibles marked.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact.
I know. So in Puerto Rico, you guys are legal, but you guys don't mark your edibles.
We're medical.
Medical.
We're not.
But still, your chocolate's not marked. You don't know. Mm-hmm. So be careful. There's a chocolate bar out. Don't eat it.
I will definitely be paying attention to the next chocolate bar. One other thought I have before we'll wrap her up, but I also in the in alignment with the speakers, something that's always good to include into the summit to some degree is also like case studies or testimonies. So not just industry experts, but somebody that has had their life changed or somebody that has gone through the process that you're teaching, whether it's the business person who went from, like almost failure to success, or the actual case study of the reason the business owners matter, because this is the person who was on their deathbed and then now they have a normal life again. So it's always good to kind of sprinkle a couple of those in as proof. And it's a really good kind of feel good aspect of the
That is great advice. I would never have thought of that. And I can think of so many people that we could reach out to. Oh, that's excellent advice. So I love that. So a conflicting viewpoint and then a case study. That's two things I never would have thought of.
Awesome.
That's gold.
I'm glad that we could give you a little gold on here, and hopefully everybody
oh my gosh,
listening in is getting some gold as well. Leah, I want to say super thank you for actually, letting us record this live, putting it out there, letting other people benefit from this as well. And you know what? I'll let you kind of close out. Like if you have anything you want to say to the audience who's listening in, who's maybe considering whether they should do a summit or like maybe they're afraid of doing a summit, like what's just some kind of parting piece of wisdom that you would have for them?
Well, first of all, I just feel so blessed to have found you. When I was approached about doing a virtual summit for my nonprofit, it is regarding animals, we kind of went a different route, but through that, I found your podcast, which that alone, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is like going to a conference and getting the best advice you could possibly get. So there was the podcast. And then I stumbled upon, okay, I'm going to sign up for what you're about, got your webinars, and you have these incredible deals. Every week you do a webinar and you give amazing advice. And then you give these incredible packages like, the upsell and, the post-summit plan and all of these things. And we have taken full advantage of that because of your generosity. And I feel so much more confident and armed now, thanks to you and everything you're putting out there. So my advice to everyone listening is definitely follow you, start tuning into your podcast, your webinar, and follow the advice, because literally I feel like I have a roadmap, and sessions like this, I mean, this is gold to me. I am so grateful to you. So thank you so much, Dr. Mark. I mean, this is amazing. I really feel like this is such a gift. So thank you. You're
going to make me blush over here. I truly accept that and I appreciate that. I mean, as you know, everybody else listening in, I mean, for me, the importance is I know each of you has a message that matters and an impact that needs to be made in the world. And for me, I get to sit back and enjoy the fact that the world's becoming a better place because all of you are out there getting your message out and making a difference in the world. So it brings me pure happiness and joy to see you guys out there rocking it. And it's even better when you actually enjoy it too. So I appreciate that. And you really are an amazing part of our tribe and our community, and I appreciate that. Now, all of you listening into this, I hope you take away some of these tips that Leah just got and you implement those into your summit, because this was some pretty valuable gold right there, I believe in. And I know that it's going to make a difference in many people's summits. Hopefully, as well, you will follow us on our live weekly summit workshop, which, again, you can get all the information to everything we're talking about. We're going to link over to Leah's site as well as her upcoming summit, so you can check that out as well. That'll all be in the show notes over at podcast.virtualsummits.com/060. We're going to wrap this one up, and I just want to say thank you again to Leah. Thank you again to all of you Summit hosts listening into this. I'm again Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software, and your message matters. Don't forget to check out the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.